The opinions expressed in the following are those of its participants and do not necessarily reflect those of the producers and the Six Talk Podcast Network. Also, the following contains mature material and mild language, which may not be suitable for all audiences. Discretion is advised.
And the podcast begins for this Friday night, August 28th, 2020. This is episode 23 of the Anime Roundtable version 2. Good evening from Toronto, Mike Nicolas, James Austin, Kevin Ng, and Mohamed Sharmarke with you again. If you have any questions or comments, animeroundtable@gmail.com is our email address. Instagram and Twitter @animeroundtable. Animeroundtable.com is our website and archive. And please don't forget to give us a rating wherever you get your podcasts, whether it's Apple, Google, Spotify, Stitcher, or the like. We start tonight at a spot I was hoping not to visit again so soon. Just plain and simple. His name is Jacob Blake, and even though he might now be paralyzed, we and his family can thank God and still say his name is Jacob Blake, and not his name was Jacob Blake. Now, I'm going to stop short of repeating what I said at the beginning of episode 19 a few months ago, so if you're really curious, listen to that again. However, I do want to add a few more things here. King Yi, one of the co-hosts of the Link Cable podcast, wrote on his Facebook page calling out the notion that canceling sports won't change things. He added that canceling sports made people talk on social media about why it happened and that it became the top story on newscasts. How about that, he said. It actually got the story of another black man being shot at the hands of police back on the front page so that nobody can ignore it. Second, if you want to criticize black athletes by saying if they didn't have their talents, they'd be just another black guy, you don't realize that doesn't change anything for them. They're still black, which means they often still don't get the benefit of the doubt when they need it the most from a police officer. Don't believe me? Ask Masai Ujiri, or Sterling Brown, or Desmond Morrow. Who, you ask? Well, all you need to know is that these men probably make way more than any of us and have at least some resources to fight when they've been wronged. Those athletes know that and use their platform to give voice to those who don't have that and make sure no one is left behind that way. As for our platform, it's still not big. And truth be told, we don't have the privilege to be paid to have this platform. Actually, we pay for it. And we will shut up in a bit and talk a little anime, but once again, we bring this up because it's the right thing to do. We bring this up to be on the right side of history. And we bring this up because it's not about politics, it's about basic human rights. It's not about left or right, it's about right or wrong. We bring this up again to acknowledge and not ignore, and maybe ask what we can do right now to help. Perhaps as a start, we should remember his name. His name is Jacob Blake. We said this all back in May. Is there anything else to really add to it after what we saw this week?
It just proves to show that it's going to take a lot of work to change the system, so to speak, over there. And, looking at it from an outsider's point of view, it just baffles me. And that's not to say that we don't have those incidents happening here, because they certainly have.
Yeah, there's another angle to that.
It's just, it's just baffling. It's saddening.
It is. I think there are some key people down there this week who did not say his name. That's why I want to emphasize that a couple times over.
Oh, not that we expected them to anyway.
Yeah, that too. James, Mo, is there anything you guys want to add?
I think there is people trying to make positive change, and we saw that in the sports world, especially with the NBA, of course, and they're a very progressive league, as we know, and they thought they could go into the bubble and they would try to bring up social justice and move the needle forward, and they just they felt it this week. They felt it. And that's what it was about these 3 days. And they had those real discussions, and we're starting to see that. They're discussing about having people in the States, if the owners own that arena and are able to, and the election commissions want them to, they will invite them in to set up polling stations in those arenas. Now,
An
some
easy
of
place,
them
yeah, an easy place for people to get to.
Now, some of them, maybe logistically, it might not work out because a story came out from Memphis after the Memphis Grizzlies and the FedEx arena. The local commission over there said it wouldn't work for them and stuff like that, and they wanted to do it through other means to drive people to their traditional polling stations or to some other places they had set up and stuff like that, getting ready for the November election, because it really is ticking down. So you can understand if some people are not able to take advantage of that.
Yeah.
But hopefully it drives more people out to the polls for them. We've also seen it on our side of the border with the Raptors and them talking to expat Americans in Canada and stuff like that, and saying you can still vote for president, and telling them how to vote as an expat in a foreign country, which is very educational and very good for people.
During their playoff games.
Mm-hmm.
Mo, you want to add something?
Nope.
There's not little else, huh?
Nope.
Yeah. I guess. Yeah, there's nothing else. Okay. The thing is, this week was a bunch of different anniversaries. Today, as we tape this, is the 57th anniversary of the I Have a Dream speech. And
Washington, yep.
Oh.
Earlier this week was also the 4th anniversary of the first time Colin Kaepernick took a knee. And the only thing I'll say is, weren't those the good old days? Kind of gotten to another point since. Okay, we've made our declaration. Let's pause for a couple seconds, and then let's actually get to the anime stuff. Because I get it, maybe we're changing gears a little too fast, but sometimes the talk about what we really do helps the soul, really. And for what it's worth, I know the basketball players will be going back beginning tomorrow, and a lot of other sports are also continuing after their pauses. And people say, okay, so what was the point of all that? In the end, a lot of these athletes have their platforms because of what they play and the fact they play. And to some degree, if they don't play at this point, those platforms to them will be lost. So hopefully that's good for their soul. As I said, let's take the break and come back. We'll start talking about a handful of anime headlines. Because, as I said, it's good for the soul. Back in a second. So let's start tonight by quickly following up on the Act Age story from a few weeks ago. Artist Shiro Usazaki finally broke her silence on the cancellation of the manga she was doing with writer Tatsuya Matsuki, when the latter was caught performing an indecent act with a minor. She released a statement earlier this week, and in that statement, she expressed her support of the cancellation, along with sympathies for both Matsuki's alleged victims and fans of the manga, and encouraged fans not to harass the victims because of the manga's cancellation, because that was not their fault. Reading the outline of the statement, it sounds like she really hit all the right notes here.
Yeah, she definitely, I was reading it and she hit everything on the head, as they said. And she also talked about how some people have once been saved by manga and stuff like that, and you shouldn't be using that love and inciting violence as two wrongs don't make a right. But hopefully, people can learn from this and it won't turn poisonous. But we've seen it in other internet cultures and other fandoms and stuff like that. So it's sad it has to be said, but I know why she said it.
I was kind of impressed she acknowledged that continuing the manga may bring some sort of PTSD of
Well,
sorts,
she talked about
trigger a bad
triggering
memory
them,
for.
and that's what a lot of them use now. It's like something will trigger them and stuff like that, and I understand where that comes from
Oh,
too.
I
And
can
it's just
respect
seeing like
that fully.
even the name of the writer, you know what I mean, on the manga and stuff like
Yeah.
that, and remembering that he is associated with it. It's kind of hard to unring that bell, you know what I mean? And different people react different ways, right?
I haven't heard the term memories triggering PTSD, specifically that terminology, but I get the idea. You don't want to remember tough things that have happened to you. And I guess there is a scientific or at least psychological term for that concept. So I get that. As for the whole, well, I have to I'm going to say this right now. A lot of these statements feel a lot like the fallout after Vic Mignona's controversy, because a lot of these feelings were known to be feelings on both sides of that issue. To me, you had a lot of his defenders saying, well, his work helped me through a tough time, right? And then, but maybe keeping him on may trigger something bad for his victims. And then obviously and obviously in time we started seeing a lot of harassment on those speaking out against. The victims of Matsuki have not been heard from publicly, but they're minors. We shouldn't expect to hear from them, frankly. And maybe for their own safety, too, because I get the feeling they would be harassed if they made themselves publicly known in any form. Like, there were just, to me, a lot of right notes that were hit. It feels like Usazaki has kind of kept up with fan culture in some ways. This was a well thought out statement, I thought, from my view. At least considering what the culture, the internet culture, and the fan culture could be like. They did their work. So this, to me, this statement hit all the right notes.
It was about what I expected. Granted, she gave it. I'm sure she gave that statement a lot of thought, knowing that sooner or later she would have had to have said something about it. And I respect her decision. I really do. In spite of me really enjoying that series, like I honestly, once I heard the news, I had a feeling that there was a very good chance that this would be over. So
Yeah.
I guess that was just the final. I'm trying not to use the cliche nail in the coffin, but
Let's call it the epilogue.
yes, that's a good way of putting it.
Because we had yet to hear from her. It was nice to hear from her. I mean, it sounds like she's handled this very well, especially since she keeps talking about the victims and acknowledging the victims.
I agree wholeheartedly.
So, didn't really hint at anything else. Did she hint at any other work to come?
No, she didn't.
Doesn't sound like
It
she did.
was
Doesn't read
just
like she did.
hopeful that everyone can move forward positively and with a better future in mind, you know what I mean? And whoever that is, hopefully, definitely for the victims, but also for the fans of the original manga, that we're sorry that this happened, but we can't unring the bell and it's time to move forward. And don't take your pain and sadness out on people that don't deserve it. The most simplest thing in the world, don't be an asshole.
Yeah. And fandom can certainly be that way, I suppose.
Yeah, but that, I guess, would be the more unkind way or undiplomatic way, as I just put it, as we know. But sometimes people don't get the message, as we've talked about many times before, right?
No kidding. I don't know. There isn't too much else to add to this one either, is there? It's going to be a quick episode. No, Usazaki, as I said, she, like, the sympathy with Overact Age's cancellation was always with her. And the way she spoke up this time over the last week, I think it is a good follow up and a good way to put closure on the issue in that sense, I think. So good on her. Glad to hear from her. I'd like to think it closes the issue fully, but I get the feeling it doesn't in that sense, in one way too. It closes one issue, but there's still obviously a little bit more to the story. Let's take a quick break. Lots of stuff on the streaming end to talk about, and we're going to do them in a bunch of bullets. It's the Anime Roundtable on Six Talk. And the podcast now continues. Nicolas, Austin, Ing, Sharmarke with you in conversation. Okay, I have to start this segment, and this is going to be a bit of a surprise to you guys because this just came across on my phone. This is breaking news. According to CBC News, Chadwick Boseman, the actor from Black Panther, has died at the age of 43 after a 4-year battle with colon cancer.
No.
This is
Are you
just
for real?
this is just
Wow.
breaking news. It just came on my phone in the last minute. Literally in the last minute.
That's hard to believe. Holy folks, a 4-year battle. It's like, did he ever say he was like fighting that? Because I'm just shocked to think that.
Yeah, he
Yeah,
did die, man. Shoot. 42, man.
43.
That is too young, man. That is too young.
43. Yeah. He was I forgot his character's name, but he was the main antagonist. Was he
Black Panther.
Who's Black Panther himself?
He was
Black Panther.
Oh my
Oh,
goodness. I was thinking the antagonist.
really?
No,
Oh,
he was the star. That's
Yeah,
right. He was the star.
Oh, man.
Damn.
All I keep thinking is that meme where he goes, clearly I'm not dead. Oh, now he's dead. Wow.
Chadwick Boseman, the star of Black Panther.
jeez.
I'm speechless right now.
That is ridiculous.
That
And we're recording this now, too? Can you believe that?
wow. I'm just gonna try and pull up the CBC News website just to see what else has been added, if there's anything that's been added to that news. And we'll read it out loud. Chadwick Boseman died at his home in LA with his wife and family by his side. That's right. I was thinking he played the antagonist. No, he was the lead role in Black Panther. Today was Jackie Robinson Day in the he played Jackie Robinson in a movie. He's played James Brown.
Yeah, no, he had some other roles before Black Panther, but Black Panther was his biggest ever, and most people are going to remember.
He played James Brown in a biography for him as well.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, not
I
spoken
remember
publicly.
James Brown and Jackie Robinson. Those were great roles.
He never spoke publicly about the diagnosis, and family has released a statement. A true fighter, Chadwick persevered through it all and brought you many of the films you have come to love so much. From Marshall to The Five Bloods, August Wilson's Ma Rainey, Black Bottom, and several more, all were filmed during and between countless surgeries and chemotherapy. It was the honor of his career to bring King T'Challa to life in Black Panther. And I guess that's the report thus far on CBC News. I guess we can expect to see more added to it within the next little while. But yeah, Chadwick Boseman, gone at the age of 43. It's really too soon to process this. This is, how else do you want to process this at the moment? The talk about, damn. I damn. That's all I could say.
You know, I never watched Black Panther, so this.
Come on, Kevin. The man just died. Come on.
No, well, I was. Let me finish.
Finish your thought, because now I've gathered my thoughts. Let's bring it up.
So, I'll admit that this doesn't hit me as hard as if certain other celebrities would have passed on, but I won't deny that hearing this news was a little surprising and saddening nonetheless. Like, it's just when you hear such prominent figures just leave us all of a sudden, it always takes me aback a little bit.
Let's talk about this. I've started to gather my thoughts a little bit. After everything that's going on in the Black Lives Matter movement, he depicted Jackie Robinson. He played the lead role in a movie that was heralded for its black cast. Black actors playing Marvel superheroes. This was one of those benchmark movies, even in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. This was a widely lauded film at the time. And then put that all together with what is going on in the US right now.
Yo, I mean, the timing of it all?
That's why this one hits. Like, it hits already pretty hard as a fan, as somebody who enjoyed watching those movies as a fan. But as I said, at this point in history, that's what we're talking about right now. Like, his depiction of King T'Challa empowered a lot of blacks in the States, did it not? It started to have them feel like they belonged in the Marvel universe. I mean, the Marvel universe is starting to make some key diversity strides. He helped start that with Black Panther. And it'll continue. I forgot his name, the actor from Kim's Convenience.
Simon? His name's Simon?
Yeah, he's set to star in a future future installment in the universe. And I'll look it up in a sec.
Sheng Lung, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Kung Fu Master.
But as I said, just juxtapose this news with everything that's happened there in the last couple months, and especially this week. Is it safe to say he was really he was kind of a source of pride for a lot of blacks in the States?
Yeah,
Is it safe?
definitely. He's an iconic individual, you know. Damn, this is heavy, man.
Yeah, this is shocking news. I have to take a breath again.
Let's take a break. We'll go back.
Yeah, let's take a break, and we'll see what else we can go with after this. Back in a second. And welcome back. We're still taking a deep breath after learning of the news of Chadwick Boseman's death. Still trying to process it. I figure there'll be other people who are even more well versed who will be able to say more about this. But yeah. Okay. We do have to move on. We did plan to start a bullet segment, so let's do that. The bullets, things presented in point form, which may turn into an essay. Let's start. Well, let's see, where do you want to start with the bullets tonight?
No, why don't we start with Sailor Moon, Mike? Because I was looking at that one article and I didn't realize that today marks the 25th anniversary since Sailor Moon debuted on YTV. It debuted on August 20th, 1995. So why don't we start there?
Wow, that
Okay,
long.
I
let's
didn't even think about it, but supposedly that is a true fact, and it's like, wow, it's been that long, and it became such a part of Canadian culture.
Jesse Betteridge reported earlier this week through a read of a Bell Media statement listing what's upcoming for Crave in September. He discovered that Sailor Moon has been picked up by Bell's streaming service. The entire original series, which ran for 5 seasons, I believe, has been picked up for sometime in September. I forgot the exact date. For all our talk about Crave in the last number of months on missed opportunities anime-wise, this is an interesting one to me.
I guess if you think about it, if someone was going to go after something, it probably would be Sailor Moon, and you would have people at Crave and Bell that probably grew up watching Sailor Moon. Like, it became such a part of people's lives in the mid 90s and stuff like that, being a kid in Canada and watching it on YTV, watching it after school on the Zone, or watching it in the morning and stuff like that. And it was syndicated to death, and how you had the SOS campaign in it. The last part of R came to YTV and was helped by them to get it finished off in Toronto. Like, you could see that it would come back through that method probably. Unfortunately, it's probably not going to be the original dub as we expect. It's probably going to be the dub Viz produced, since they're actually doing the full series and stuff like that.
Yeah. My own reaction to this is I'm trying not to read too much into it.
I don't think the gateway's opening, that's for sure. But
No, I don't think
if
so either.
if you think
It's
about what type of series it is, I can see why they would have went out and got it and stuff like that. And they would have
well,
had
okay.
some people behind it, you know what I mean, that had watched it and
Okay,
loved it.
juxtapose this in terms of everything else Crave has. Crave, for what it's worth, this is going to be on the basic tier of Crave, so it's the $10 per month tier for Crave, not as part of the HBO part. It's all part of the archived HBO and Showtime stuff. I try and think a little bit about what's in that tier. Not all of it I can remember. Obviously, most Bell media programming is part of that tier. I don't necessarily see a fit, but it's kind of cool that it's there. That's the way I look at it. But is there something that you can kind of see in that?
Hmm.
Or should we just knock it off as something pretty cool?
I
All
think
I want to say is about damn time. Because we know there's been some issues with Viz not streaming all of their licenses up here.
I could say also it's a nostalgia play, of course, even if we don't get the original dub. But it'll be interesting to see if is it just the dub or is it going to be dub and sub. That'll be the intriguing part because I don't know
Mm.
about language options on how that works with Crave. You know what I mean?
Yes. Well, I would imagine you could get them all. For reference, when had the Crave subscription and was watching Star Trek Picard, I could get in French. It was an option. So I would like to think it's there, but we'll find out when it finally shows up later in September. For reference, Crave is available beginning at $10 a month. We mentioned that. If you're willing to pay an extra $10, make it $20. You get HBO, make it $30. Stars programming, and respectively, I think on the first two tiers, if you're willing to pay $100, you can get that for the $10 tier for a year. $200 gets you the HBO tier for a year. Why am I bringing up subscription prices, you ask? Second bullet. Okay, Crunchyroll. Crunchyroll earlier this week released news of going multi-tier as well. It was partly in response to the long requested feature for subscribers to download and watch programming offline on their devices. They got it, but let's just say you'd have to reach a little bit more to it. Crunchyrolls generally divide themselves into 3 tiers, 2 tiers,
Two
depending on where you
tiers,
are.
and they've added the middle tier for the download to view offline.
Basic tier is the one we know right now, which begins at $7.99 a month, is it?
Yeah, American, I believe.
Mm-hmm. And the next tier is the one that gets you offline download, offline viewing. And then I think there's like a mega fan tier, they call it, the third or fourth. I think they added another one in the States. And
And that involves the Crunchyroll store and stuff like that. So I guess you get a discount, and like the Americans I know got free shipping on everything and stuff like that. But that was never available to international subscribers.
so yeah, they have 4 tiers overall in the States, and then 3 in much of the rest of the English speaking world. So Canada, I think it's mainly aimed Canada and UK. I know reading around, the general consensus is unsatisfied.
Well, there's definitely a lot of chirping, and some of it was stuff we've heard again and again from Crunchyroll. It's like many people haven't had great experiences on the platform. I know I've had issues in the last few months where I'm trying to watch an episode, and I know my internet is not the issue, but I keep on seeing the spinning circle trying to
Oh,
load an episode, and I'm like, what am I
I
paying
get
for?
that.
And people are asking that question on that front. They talk about the
I
translators because,
I get that too. When I've been watching the odd episode of Card Captor, Clear Card, I've had to restart.
but then I know there's the one we talked about, Mike, and that was one we've seen now added into the mix because obviously it was a requested feature, and that is, why am I paying for this when all the other guys, it's just included in the basic? And I think we understood the reasoning behind it, but I guess others don't understand is that there's probably an extra fee to actually have this on the license, of course. And it's
Yes,
hidden,
that's
buried beneath in Netflix and stuff like that. And as you said, maybe certain Netflix series are not allowed to be viewed offline because they wouldn't allow that to happen, or there was an extra cost.
yeah. I mean, we remember we've talked in the past that whenever a show gets licensed to somebody, it's very specific. Is it's streaming rights, but not necessarily Blu-ray rights. Something tells me in that mix now is offline viewing rights as well,
Yep. And we
because that amounts
talked
to
about it.
temporary digital copy or a temporary rental or whatever, and that's to be negotiated too, I suppose. That's my guess. Someone suggested that in some of the forums, and James, sounds like you would generally agree that could be the case.
Yeah, that's likely. Like, it just adds more confusion. Like, a few weeks ago, I know people were confused because Sentai announced that they had the license to Wicked City and to Demon City Shinjuku. And people were like, well, how can that be when Discotek just released a Blu-ray of one of them at the end of July, and Wicked City is going to be at the end of September? And then it was buried in the press release that they didn't have the home video, they had the streaming rights, and Discotek had to clarify with people that they just had the home video. So now you have this, and you're just like, well, what's going to happen, right? It's like you could have multiple people having different moving parts. Now, hopefully that won't happen, but weird things have happened in the licensing
Yeah.
business.
Okay, just looking it up, the present tiers right now, the premium tiers in terms of Canada, $7.99 a month for the first tier, the fan tier. The mega fan tier, that's where the offline viewing begins. That's a $9.99 per month tier. Perhaps one other key thing is with the first tier, you can stream on one device. Second tier, you have 4 devices. And then if you're willing to pay $100, you can get the mega fan tier for a year. Those are the key differences. According to the website, I forgot off the top of my head the US one, but I think you kind of hit that already for me, James.
Yeah, I can't remember the exact figures, but the other thing that makes me wonder too is, as we were talking before, is some
Mm-hmm.
people want this offline option, stuff like that, and some of them because they probably don't want to use their internet or other things. Maybe they're going away and they won't be near Wi-Fi or stuff like that. But I always wonder, how often would I actually use it to actually get that extra amount that I would pay for? You know what I mean? And I wonder if some of that is coming into their argument because it was just given to them and stuff like that, even though those were bigger. Well, I know Crunchyroll is a bigger company. It is owned by Warner Media and stuff like that, but it is a smaller fish in that pie of Warner Media, of course. So
Yes.
they got pulled
Well,
their own weight.
mm-hmm. Well, do we want to just acknowledge some of the differences with the other major possible services?
Sure, I think you had some of them, didn't you? Like, I know.
Yes, Funimation, and we'll go on the monthlies. Funimation, according to their website, and once again, these are probably Canadian prices: Premium, Premium Plus, and Premium Plus Ultra. Premium 2 streams, but no no offline, no offline viewing. Premium Plus is where the offline viewing begins. 2 streams as well, and then Premium Plus Ultra, which is right away for 1 year at $99.99. 2 simultaneous streams, and then some members only offers. Netflix, just for reference, their 2 key tiers, $9.99 I think you have a couple extra streams. I think you have two screens, maybe one. But I know the key thing with the $9.99 tier is it's an SD. HD begins at the next tier, which is $13.99, and then I think it's $15.99. You could get Ultra HD or 4K.
And that's interesting when you think about it now, Mike, because I remember that's the case, but they haven't ever done that for either Funimation or for Crunchyroll, dividing SD and HD streams and stuff like that. It was all there. Even the freebies get the HD.
Yeah.
But it's interesting too that probably there was some looking at what Funimation did. So it's like, okay, it's like we'll do a similar deal, but yeah, people are still going to come out and have their say.
True. There is difference. I guess Crunchyroll is just dividing it further. Cash grab, perhaps. From my standpoint, just as a personal user, I get to watch an episode of Card Captor in a little while because I've been so focused on a bunch of other things, which you already know if you've listened to previous episodes.
Mm-hmm.
But I hardly use offline with Netflix. I haven't used it enough anyway to, and this is just the way I go about my daily life. So this is one of those ho-hum type announcements for me. I think the only thing that could possibly put me up in arms is when my annual subscription for Crunchyroll comes up. What are they going to charge? Because the first year was 60, the second year, and they were upfront about it. The second year would be 70.
And
The
that was
current
their first
the
increase.
current low tier, the current first tier begins at $7.99 a month. So you'd like to think, or at worst, it could be 80. Who knows? Who knows? It hasn't really committed. There's nowhere in my account that seems to let on what that charge will be when the subscription is up. And I think that's the point. Maybe I'll be up in arms, if at all.
Well, that was similar to what I was thinking, Mike. It's like we'll see how it goes, but it will be interesting when it finally gets implemented to see which shows are actually allowed to be used for offline viewing and stuff like that. Will it be everything?
Yeah, actually, you
Will
did
it?
bring up that does bring up an interesting point. Just because they've announced it, is it blanket for every show?
You would like to think they got a lot of them if it took them this long to actually announce it. And the other thing is, we've talked about all these companies want original shows. So we've seen the Crunchyroll originals, them bring those out. So obviously those would be included and stuff like that. Or I think they want to be on the committee to do the show. It's because of things like this so that they can control all the rights.
I mean, it's another layer to the whole Crunchyroll story, especially in light of the fact that it's for sale. Don't know what this will add to the value. Really, maybe it's irrelevant. Somebody tell me. I don't know.
I don't think it's something that has probably been on the boil for a long time, so I wouldn't worry about anything like that for the sale. That's just another thing that's on the back burner too now because they have to actually find that person that's actually going to buy them, if at all, and what money they're willing to finally part for it at so that they can get to pay off their debt and stuff like that on the Warner side. But it'll be interesting to see who wants to pony up the money because, especially in this economic climate, it would be a hard sell. And they just start really high with Sony Funimation, and I don't think they took too kindly to that. So I'm not sure how they're going to go back to them if they even want to go at a lower price, or how they would get those other buyers drumming up interest. Because I wouldn't say it's
Yeah,
a buyer's market, unfortunately.
not right.
More of
Well,
a bear market.
Oh, don't. All I think is that don't sell it to Funimation. Like, come on.
okay.
We don't need more
Well,
monopolies.
okay. True. but wonder who would be interested. And we've come up with our names, so we'll let this story simmer for a little longer and maybe revisit it when we think something's inevitable or another name comes up or we have other ideas. But on the topic of other companies, Sentai, let's talk about them for a couple minutes before we go off the air tonight. They have made a couple announcements. I'm not going to say they're back from the dead, but at the least there's still a pulse.
And they had their own Sentai at Home event on the Wednesday,
guys.
and they managed to put together a good program for 2 hours and 15 minutes. And I think it's still up on YouTube if you want to look it up.
Anything that stuck out?
It was just a few announcements, but they were just promoting a lot of stuff for this season and for stuff they had next season, like Is It Wrong to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon season 3, and they tied in stuff for that with interviews with the Japanese side and the English side as well. So they had interviews with the Japanese side of Peter Grill of Is It Wrong to Be in a Dungeon. They also had interviews with the Japanese seiyus of Made in the Abyss. And some of that I would beware watching the Made in the Abyss interviews because it goes into spoiler territory because they were promoting the third movie, which somehow got out into real live theaters this month. 2 of them are in Canada, one in Calgary, one in Vancouver. But they announced that there will be a virtual option in September. And then the other funny thing too was they had the director of Moribito, even though they're re-releasing it, they had an interview with him because obviously they're re-releasing that in September. So that was an interesting.
Yeah,
It was funny
that was
watching
surprising.
his interview. I'm like, holy smokes, he's aged so much in my mind.
I'm surprised Moribito got licensed again. Well, I guess I shouldn't be too surprised because it's a good show, but
and the caliber of the people behind it.
Wow, I'm just like, really? Yeah, I'm just like, oh, it's the third company now. Because it was Media Blasters at first, and I think it went to Viz,
it was
if I'm not mistaken.
It was Genion first, and then John Cirabella from Media Blasters bought it stock lock and barrel from Genion. That was one of the few that Funimation did not get. And the reason Media Blasters and John went after it is because it had the TV deal with Adult Swim already signed. So he's like, hit. And it was. It's because it had everything already done by
Genion never put it out, right?
Yeah, Genion never
put it out.
Yeah, but they had the license.
Because in my mind, I knew Media Blasters put it out first.
So everything was ready to go, and they just tried to get it done as quickly. But yeah, they basically did all the work for Media Blasters, and all Media Blasters had to do was pay for the license.
That is typical John Cirabella right there.
So it's fourth time is the charm, because we had Genion, Media Blasters, Viz, and now
John
Sentai,
Cirabella.
Way to go.
But no, that one was a funny one because that went through the fandom and they were just having a good chuckle over that one.
The chuckle and John Cirabella, that just sounds like 2 sets of words that go together. Okay, anything else to add?
Well, the only other one, and I'm not sure if you we're talking about earlier, Kevin, when we were offline here, but we're talking about them licensing as well, because Sentai gets some odd shows, like they've went to Yuri and stuff like that, but they're now going into Yaoi, and they have done certain shows like this as well. But this is more Yaoi in your face with Twittering Birds Never Fly, The Clouds Gather. And it's one of 3 60-minute theatrical installments. And so the first one came out in February in Japan, and they're going to release them all supposedly. But this is a part of Fuji TV's new initiative called their Blue Links Boys Love anime label. And this is their first project. And this one's kind of interesting. You look at the trailer, it's interesting too, because it's kind of like this forbidden love between this Yakuza gangster and this police officer.
That's the setup.
Wow. First time I think we said the word Yakuza in this episode. I'll get back to that in a little bit.
Are we supposed to
And
take
they
a
also
drink now,
licensed
Matt?
Granbelm too.
Well, yeah, that one was through the solicitations and that's coming on November, but that one's a funny one too, because that Bell, it was actually on Crunchyroll. It
Oh.
looks like Crunchyroll has the master license because on the cover it doesn't only just have Sentai's name, but it has Crunchyroll's name on it. So it's like they're distributing it for them, similar to how they're doing shows like Konosuba with Discotheque. So it makes me wonder, they had an announcement, and we talked about it many shows ago, about how Viz and Warner were going to be the new distribution partner for physical media with Crunchyroll, and we haven't seen hide nor hair of them. But somehow we've had these Crunchyroll distributed releases through Discotheque, and now this one through Sentai. So it's like, what's happening or what's going on? It's like, how could every other company get something out for Crunchyroll but their partner they announced so ceremoniously after they dumped Funimation?
Yeah, there haven't been many that come out.
Or
Like I
split
think
to
there were Free
Funimation.
did come out on disc too, if I'm not mistaken. Free season 1. Because I remember with that situation, Crunchyroll had the master license for season 1, and then Funimation had the license for season 2.
Yeah, because of how they worked it out and stuff like that. It was some of these go through so many hoops, right? And there was another one actually. They did announce an old license. They had locked the Superman for Blu-ray. They were announced they had, and they were going to release that in November too. But that was interesting because it's going to be sub only, and I know there was a dub because I think that dub was on the Discotheque DVD release about 5 or 7 years ago when they released it. So it makes me wonder how they're not able to get dubs, because they had that same issue with Made in Japan when they released one of the Dominion Police and another older title where there was an English dub. It was done by manga back in the 90s,
it
but
could be
for
one
some
of
reason
those
they weren't
like
able to license it or get it. And Discotheque has managed to be able to do that
could be
for all their
cost, it
releases.
could be
But I
the
know it can
masters
be
are bad,
problematic.
it could be the masters are gone, or the dub is gone, dub track is gone.
Well, some of that isn't that. Some of it, I think, is the original dub company
and then
kind of owns that recording
they
and
would
stuff like
want,
that from
and
those
they would
way
hold it
older shows. We're
hostage
talking about
by
80s and 90s,
asking
and that's where I'm talking
for
about.
body limbs. Kind of like, a lot of those 90s ADV titles were like that too, I remember. Because that was back when contracts were, like, the Japanese didn't think of having that clause in their contracts about owning those dubs after the fact. Yeah.
Or owning those extras and stuff like that,
The only
too.
reason why I keep my 5 centimeters DVD for that ADV dub.
Okay.
Well, it's funny you should say that, Kevin, because there's a reason to keep, if you ever buy it, and I have it, the Hayate, the Combat Butler DVD from Bandai. So, because that's funny enough, they are releasing an ultimate collection of all the series and the movie of Hayate in November too from Sentai. But I never
Really?
dipped into it because supposedly that's season 1. They do not have the it's like they had a Japanese track on the Bandai DVD that was the bleep track, so they would bleep all these things out. And so you would think,
Yeah,
okay,
I
why am I
remember that.
watching a censored thing? But you see, the bleep track was more hilarious than the track without the bleeps. Like, it made it more
Yep.
ridiculous
I
and
agree.
more funny and more offensive in a way to have the bleeps in there. And it's too bad they didn't get that track for Sentai.
Well, they could just do it themselves if they really wanted to.
But
They just don't want to the money, put in the extra work, which I don't really blame them.
it was funny too. It's like I was looking right
Or maybe
now
it's
actually at their November.
or it could be a permission thing.
Yeah,
Okay.
it probably is
Who knows?
a rights thing. But the
All
last
right.
thing looking at their thing too for November, they're on the Shinkai train too, it seems, because they're releasing the Garden of Words in Steelbook edition as well. But of course,
Good old foot fetish movie.
yeah, but
It's not like it's the Shinkai coattail, right?
Something like that. But the funny
Okay.
thing though with these steelbooks for Sentai, like you can get them when they go on sale at the deep discounts. It's better to get them because for some reason, if you do it without just the US retail price, their recommended price, they're asking like $79.98 for these type of movie steelbooks I've seen. Like they've done it with Ghost of the Fireflies, they've done it with Vampire Hunter D, and I'm like, why are they starting there?
Oh
Like it's
yeah,
kind
Grave of
of
the Fireflies.
weird compared to all the other people. So once they like parry it down during the sales, it's the time to get it because at least it's at a somewhat more reasonable price. But it's one of those weird ones where they really price them up, and I don't know why they do that.
Who knows?
Well,
Okay, finish. Give
they
your last thought. Okay. Sorry.
not getting as many shows as of late, so they got to up the price on some of that stuff.
Yeah, as we said, it's a lot of tumbleweed and stuff like that. That's why people were wondering what would happen at the Sentai at home, and there were a couple of new things, but it doesn't seem like there's much happening at the moment, even with the drop in the bucket Cool Japan gave them. I know
Listen,
Funimation has got the lion's share of the fall season coming up. I see them promoting some of that stuff too. They were promoting Gods of Grace, and then they also, oh, actually, it was by the Grace of Gods was the one that the isekai they were talking about, and they showed at their event in July, which was good. And then, of course, Igarashi, they showed the recent trailer, and that'll look good. Definitely brought back the feels when you watch that
Oh, I
trailer.
can't wait to watch that.
yeah. Well,
I can't wait to watch that.
as I said at the beginning of talking Sentai, and we'll finish this up. It's not really they've been resuscitated or brought back to life. It's just a confirmation that they still have a pulse, which at least means they're still
Hmm.
there.
Yeah, they're still there, but it's kind of crazy. Like when we think back to the beginning of the aughts and the boom and stuff like that, and they were always front and center, and they had all the sizzle and all that stuff, and you see where they are now, and it's just like wow, just
Mm-hmm.
just wow.
Okay.
And some
Well,
people can't even probably remember what ADV is now, right? Just like they can't remember what Genion is.
those were the days,
Yep.
So they'll
dude.
they'll probably have to Google that, I guess, if we have the younger viewers, right?
Right.
We're the old school fans now,
Oh, yeah, that too.
relatively speaking.
Mm-hmm.
We're not really old school, but well, I guess some of you are, but
Yes.
it's like it's interesting when nowadays when you have Boruto coming out now, and then fans of Boruto joke that, oh yeah, there's another show called Boruto's Dad, and
Okay.
a lot of those fans have not watched Naruto,
It's kind of
and that sounds crazy to us.
geez, and
And I guess
it's not it's not like passing fandom with the Rolling Stones, is it?
but it's kind of
Going
funny when we think
crossing
about it
mainstream with that.
too. Like way back
Anyway.
when it's like you had anime clubs and people were showing all sorts of different series and like everything felt new. So you had things from the 90s, from the early 2000s, and then even some from the 80s. Because remember, you showed and people fell in love with Core at our old anime club there, Mike. And it was just
Mhm.
all
Sugar
new. It was
Orange
all
Road, yeah.
fresh. And now everyone, because we're in front of computers and we're watching streaming, and we've talked about it before, everyone wants that next new hot thing. And it's like, okay, what's on this season? Or what's on this season? I have to keep up. And it's become almost like television instead of discovering all these different shows that are from different years and
Eras.
different decades like we used to and stuff like that, and looking at them with fresh eyes. Whereas now they probably say, this is old. It's like, I'm going to skip to something else.
Isn't that kind of sad?
And then you don't get that evergreen feel,
Yeah.
right? Because
Well,
would Cowboy Bebop still have the same feel and still be as evergreen if it was released now, I wonder, compared to
mhm.
back then and other
Well,
shows
what is
back
it?
then? That's what I always
Uh,
wonder with the way it is, like each season. It's like, oh, this was so great this season or this year, and then we forget about it down the line.
Well, you just had me thinking. The anime. Well, what's the new series based on Inuyasha that's just about to come out?
I think isn't it like Yasha Hime or something?
I
I don't
I
remember.
believe it's similar to what you said. That rings a bell, Kevin.
Yes, but remember, the anime is about to come out, and this was years after
Yeah, it's
Inuyasha.
Yasha
So
Hime.
let's see what happens here, and how many will bring up being a fan of the original.
It's Yasha Hime.
Yashahime? Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we're going to wind it up in just a bit. But quickly, last episode, I asked James and Kevin to talk a little bit about a recommendation, what's something they're doing or reading at the moment. Didn't really ask Mohamed about anything lately. And I'm wondering if Mohamed can hear me for a second.
I can hear you. I'm still here.
I will edit that out. But I did want to ask.
That solo.
Yeah.
No, do not edit this out.
I am going to ask you though. Did you finish Japan Sinks?
Have not yet finished it.
How far in? How many episodes is it?
I believe it's only 10. It's 10 episodes. I'm 5 episodes in.
Okay, so you're still just halfway through.
Halfway through.
Okay. I thought I'd ask. How
Did you watch it?
Not yet, because I will tell you my upcoming stuff. First of all, I did start Yakuza Kiwami earlier today, just a little bit. Book-wise, I'm starting to read Pure Invention by Matt Alt, and that's an assignment between me and James. We have to read it in a bit. But the last book I read was Underground as well, which was about Aum Shinrikyo and the sarin gas attacks back in 1995. And just for reference, coming back to Yakuza, in Yakuza 0, there was a side story where Majima had to save a girl from a cult. And everything he finds out in that cult reads exactly like, well, it's not a coincidence because of who the leader ended up looking like later on, too. But it reads like things that would have happened or documented as happening in Aum Shinrikyo according to Underground, the book by Murakami. When I read that part in the book, I remembered that mission, that side story in Yakuza. And it described a lot of things that happened in there to a T. And which has me thinking the developers really did do their research back then. There's another joke with that, but I'll say that off the air. So that's my current queue. And oh yeah, and I found out on the topic of Netflix too, Ready Player One is presently on Netflix, but apparently that's set to expire sometime next week in the first couple days of September. So that's something I've put on my immediate queue. So I want to take some time to watch that if seeing that was any good. And that's about it. Well, to the listeners out there, I just want to also quickly acknowledge or preview something that we're going to do in a couple days that you'll see on your feeds. Angela O'Hara will join me for an interview sometime this weekend, and we'll have that up hopefully within a day or so of this episode being up. And we're going to catch up with her in a new segment, and we'll tell you more about that when we start that. So for anybody wondering what she's been up to since the version 1 era, we're going to hear from her for the first time in the version 2 era in the next day or so. So hopefully to a long time listeners,
That's cool.
To listeners from the past who've listened way back, I think you'll be interested to hear from her. But that's about it for this evening. This has not been an easy week, and this evening has not been easy considering the stuff we just found out as we were taping.
It just hit me that we lost Black Panther and Black Mamba this year.
Yeah.
2020, man.
Just 3 months to go. Oh, 4 months to go. Oh, I think people wish it was already over.
Let's just make it 3 months to go.
Hopefully. And but that's about it. I'd like to think there's still stuff to look forward to. I think there is. I'd like to think so. But boy, lots to digest this week. I think we'll have to stop now to do so. Thanks for listening. Have a good night.